Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
Psalms chapter 84 and verse 10. For a day in thy courts is better than 1,000. So 1 day in the kingdom of heaven is better than 1,000 of your best days on this side, man. Let me repeat that again. 1 single day in the kingdom of heaven is better than 1,000 of your best days on this side, man. Okay? Where things were better for you. Moments that you can reminisce on and say, yeah, that was a good day. The kingdom of heaven blows it out the park, man. It blows it out the water. Just 1 day. Not to mention, the Heavenly Father, He's going to stretch out the time. He's going to expand the time so you can enjoy your immortality. You can enjoy your life. And the Lord said in Wisdom of Solomon, He created the Israelite man to be an image of his own eternity, man. We're going to be a likeness of his own eternity, man. We're going to be many most highs, man. We're going to be many most highs. Okay? God's on earth under Yahweh Shemiah Shah.
I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High.
And also what's going to make us gods? These laws, statutes, commandments, and us judging by the laws, statutes, commandments, but also these laws being in our inward parts, making us those perfect judges. Not to mention, we experience these different reincarnations in this wicked flesh, so we know how to judge the flesh. We know how to judge this body because we've been in this body many times. Okay? But once again, the kingdom of heaven is going to be patterned after the mind of Yahweh Shemiah Shah, man. A righteous paradigm.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven.
Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect out there pushing this word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, pushing to get up out of there. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners, whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh by Shema Shai. All right. And what I want to get into today is continue on, all right, in the book of First Kings. And we made it to the 19th chapter. All right. And what I want to go into from the aspect, okay, of the remnant and fear not. All right, because in First Kings, the 19th chapter, you have the account that was quoted, by the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans, the 11th chapter. But when you go into it, you get straight to it. First Kings chapter 1, First Kings chapter 19, verse 1. Okay, now you're going to see, all right, Jezebel, all right, become more of a demon, okay, in the narrative, and we're going to see her in, all right, and Elijah, okay, is fleeing for his life. He makes a plea to the Lord. So this is a pretty heavy chapter. All right, we're gonna get into it and tie it into today. Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters are edified. Now when you go to first 19 verse 1, it says, and Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Okay, and I don't know what type of nigga this was, Ahab, man. Okay, the northern tribe, man. So he's going to tell Jezebel, his wife, what Elijah, had done. So this nigga going to tell his woman, all right, which Ahab was an extreme simp. of the northern kings, man. Okay, and it says all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, "So let the God do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time." So she's threatened, by tomorrow, that she's gonna kill Elijah. Okay, and like I said, Ahab, he's just weak as they come. Okay, and pretty much Jezebel was the one running, the northern kingdom at this time, as you can tell. Okay, it says Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. Then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. "I have had enough, Lord Yahweh Bashem Al Shai," he said. "Take my life, for I'm no better than my ancestors who have already died." So Elijah, he's in the flesh, and he just fed up. Idolatry, was the culture of the northern tribes. Like amongst the northern kingdom, idolatry was just dominant. Okay, you got a goddamn heathen woman pretty much running the kingdom. Okay, Ahab is just pretty much a do boy for Jezebel. Okay, and you have pagan culture that it just dominate. Jacob served the Lord for a few minutes and get right back to paganism, man. So Elijah's like, "Look, just take me out." He said, I'm tapped out. So Elijah is pretty much tapping out, man. Okay, and it says verse 5, it said, "Then he lay down and slept under the broom tree, but as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, 'Get up and eat.'" Okay, he looked up, he looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. Just more proof, that it's going to be easy for the Lord to provide for us in these times to come. All right, because we can expect nothing less than miracles, to be performed for us to make it. You know, nothing less than a miracle. Said then the angels of the Lord came again and touched him and said, "Get up and eat some more, or the journey ahead will be too much for you." Okay, so he's provided for even as he's out and isolated. A lot of times too, man, this this ministry have us as men, extremely isolated. You know, because it's a burden, that we constantly bear, and a lot of times, the Lord has us isolated. Okay, and it just be a heavy spirit of isolation on brothers to get to themselves, man. You know, and the Lord be dealing, all right, to be strengthened. Then you kind of you know engage with society a little more. Okay, do what you gotta do. But it's always good, to step back, to be strengthened. Really tap into the true bread, which is Yahweh Shai. you know. And it says, so he got up and ate and drank and food, all right, and the food gave him enough strength to travel 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of the Most High. So his meal sustained him for 40 days and 40 nights. And that's another thing. We can't just look at, the Lord provide for us as us, eating, 3 meals a day in a time of scarcity, man. Was the Lord have it to where we eat a meal and be sustained, for weeks. Eat one meal and be sustained for weeks. He feed us one time with a miracle and we be good. You know, so there's another thing too. We can't look at you know, as the Lord provide for us. It's just us having a buffet all day. During Jacob's trouble, man. Okay, it can play out, in this way as well. Now he could have it to where we just got abundance of, food. Okay, and he can play it out to where we're eating sparingly, but it's that food is holding us down. It's giving us strength, for long durations of time. Okay, it said there he came to a cave where he spent the night. Verse 9. But the Lord said unto him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah replied, I have zealously served the Lord power almighty, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars and killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too. So he's pleading to the Lord like I'm the only one left. Like they just constantly killing your prophets, paganism is still, dominating, It's like I'm the last one left. Like it's like we losing, we down. It says, go out and stand before me on the mountain. The Lord told him, and as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were turned loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, okay, there was a sound of a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in a cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And a voice, all right, and a voice said, what are you doing here, Elijah? Okay. He replied again, I have zealously served the Lord power almighty, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too. Then the Lord told him, go back the same way you came and travel to the wilderness to Damascus. When you arrive there, anoint Hazael to be king of Aram. All right, these are heathen kings. So showing you that the Lord, all right, no matter who's in power, who's in authority, it all comes, it all has to be ordained from on high. Okay, showing you that the Lord, all right, ruleth in the kingdom of men. Okay, what you're going to get there said, then anoint Jehu, grandson of Nemish, to be king of Israel, and anoint Elijah, son of Shaphat, all right, um, from the town of Abil Mahala to replace you as prophet. So Elijah, he's going, he's being told to anoint, all right, Hazel, a heathen king over Aram, all right, Jehu, okay, which is going to be the next, king of Israel, the northern tribes, and then Elisha, all right, the prophet is going to replace him. So Elijah is being told to go anoint these men, and it shows you the rank, right, that the prophets have, with the Lord. Okay, let's go here, but going also to show you the Lord because there's a heathen king, but the Lord has, all right, authority over all the affairs of men in the earth. Okay, now he deals with one nation, Israel, in a specific way, in a more intimate way than he does with these nations. Which we have a covenant. We have the promises, the blessings of immortality to come, which these nations don't have. Okay, well the Lord, all right, is directly involved in all the affairs of men. Okay, let's go here to Daniel 4:17. It says, "For this has been decreed by the messengers. It is commanded by the holy ones, so that everyone may know that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world. He gives them to anyone he chooses, even to the lowliest people." All right, which the earth is given into the hand of the lowliest people. Now Esau, Edom, but he was ordained to rule. All right, for this space and time. Okay, before he will be judged. All right, and then to be a punishment unto us. Okay, and for the elect, all right, it was a chastening, that will push us to repentance and appreciation of righteousness, man. Okay, but to show that what the Most High ruleth, okay, in the kingdom of men, all right, and amongst these kings, the Lord will send prophets, and the prophets are above, these particular kings, okay, and these kings, okay, these prophets, will go and dictate, thus saith the Lord, to these different kings. All right. Now, when you read this and look at this in the KJV, you know, you see when the Lord raised up the prophets, He's raising up men, all right, to dictate His will, all right, to the judges of the earth, okay, the rulers of the earth, okay. We're above, the elite bankers. We're telling them, "Thus saith the Lord." Okay, this is going to happen. This is what you're going to do. This is how it's going to end for you. Okay, Jeremiah 1:9 said, Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth, and the Lord said unto me, Behold, I have put my words in thy mouth. Okay, so we come, with the authority of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, because they're his words. We're just vessels, okay, used, to carry the message, but these are the Lord's words. Okay, when we talk about World War III, this ain't a probability. No, these are the words which are the will of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Okay, the famine, the MOTB, okay, these nations going into captivity. These are the words, all right, of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Okay, these are the words, all right, and the will of the Heavenly Father. Okay, and we're sent as messengers, man. Okay, verse 10 says, See, I have set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms to root out and to pull down and to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant. Okay, and what we're seeing being rooted out and pulled down and destroyed is this current, all right, wicked system. All right, this beast system is being pulled down. Okay, this word, okay, is uprooting a whole empire, like Yahweh Shah said. With the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Which mountains, okay, are symbolic for uh, governments a lot of time in the scriptures. Okay, and the mountain that's being moved is a mount of Esau, Edom. Okay, this beast system is being thrown down. All right, by this word. Okay, and what's being built, okay, is the house of David, the dynasty, whom the Lord promised, okay, will have rulership, okay, in the end. You see? So the Lord always, position his prophets to be over, okay, the different affairs, to give, the understanding to what's to come, okay, set things in order according to the will of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. All right, so you go back here to 1 Kings 19. Okay, jump back down. Uh, so Elijah, he was fed up. But let's go here real quick. I want to get this too. Cause I say Elijah, his flesh is weak. He's weak. His spirit was weak at this time. The flesh, doubtful, fearful. Okay, so he had to be strengthened. He had to be isolated and strengthened. So you had to go to Galatians 6 and I started, and it looked like, all right, that wickedness, was winning. Okay, but when you go to Galatians 6 and 7, it says, "Be not deceived; the Most High is not mocked." Okay, so what we see in the earth, this rebellion against righteousness, but the Most High is not mocked. Because right now it's an end thing to mock the Most High. Atheism, is normal amongst this society, especially amongst Jake, man. There used to be taboo, all right, for Jake to be an atheist, man. Okay, because generation ago, all right, generation and a half ago, man, it was a reverence for the Most High. Certain things you didn't do, didn't say, you didn't play. Even though Jake didn't, fully have the knowledge, they ain't play like niggas play today. Okay, and you look out today and it's like, damn, everybody just take the Most High for a joke. Everybody, the niggas, the nigga woman, everybody damn body. You see? But we know the Most High is not mocked. All right, and those that are scoffing are the majority. Okay, which that's how it's supposed to be because a remnant represents a few. Okay, compared to the enemies of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. It says, "Be not deceived; the Most High is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit, all right, shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting." Okay, and let us not be weary in well doing. Okay, and right now we have a society of people that just sow into the flesh. They live, for quick pleasures, okay, for attention, for popularity, okay. They're just sowing to the flesh, and the only thing they're going to reap is death and torment, okay, in the time of judgment, okay. But as we are sowing to the spirit, as we're, rehearsing the righteous acts all through faith, doing the works, okay, teaching, learning, and, fasting and praying and growing in Yahweh Shai, okay, we're planting the seed that's going to sprout into everlasting life, you know, that there's a reward for what we're doing in this everlasting life, man. Okay, it says, and let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we will reap if we faint not. You see, and we see in the account where Elijah, was weary, okay, where he gets strengthened, and eventually, Elijah, he's going to be rewarded forever, okay, and understanding who Elijah was, John the Baptist, came back as Elder Alvin Bivens, to be that forerunner in his life, okay, and he's, in the spiritual realm waiting, to be rewarded forever, okay. But one thing about it, we can't grow weary and well doing, because this society will wear you down, because we're going against the grain, because this is a society that's convenient for wickedness, okay. Living righteousness in this society, it can be weary, and scriptures speak about, how we got to strive lawfully, because we can't cut corners that these people cut. We have a standard, okay. We have an expectation, you see. So we can't grow weary, in well doing, all right, because we know, hey, there's a reward at the end. And the main perspective is to understand, that this, because if you have the mindset like, it's going to be fair, you think you're going to be appreciated, okay, you're going to be constantly disappointed. All right, this ain't that time. Righteousness is not appreciated, okay. So we have to understand these things. We're going to be the outcast. We're not going to get a fair shake. Okay. So we can't grow weary, in well doing, because we understand what are we doing it for, and then this becomes who we are. You know, this is what we are now. This is what we do. This is what we believe. This is our life now. Okay. So going back to First Kings. All right, 19. All right. Back in the NLT, verse 17. It says, anyone, okay, it says, anyone who escapes from Hazael will be killed by Jehu, and those who escape Jehu will be killed by Elisha. Yet I will preserve 7,000 others in Israel who have not bowed down to Baal or kissed him. Okay, so there were 7,000 in Israel, which is 7,000, 7 going to completion. Okay, which ultimately just represents, the hopeful elect, a complete number of believers who didn't bow the knee to Baal. Okay, so they didn't go the way of Baal, they stayed faithful, man. And the Lord created the elect, to be faithful, man. All right, the elect are not going to bend the knee, and that's why you go into the book of Romans, all right, chapter 11, and this is what Apostle Paul was quoting. We read this often in Romans, but that's the account, all right, the actual account he was quoting from. Okay, uh, I read this Romans 11:1. It says, "I asked then, has the Most High rejected His own people? Okay, the nation of Israel? Of course not. I myself am an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, and a member of the tribe of Benjamin." Okay, so here it is, the Apostle Paul. He's giving his registry. All right, and you have this replacement theology as if the Most High, has replaced Israel, okay, with what the Christian call the church of believers. Madness. No, the Lord hasn't replaced, all right, Israel, to bring in heathens. All right, Israel is not, all right, rejected. Now there is, a 2/3, okay, that's rejected at this time, or even this temple. Okay, but there's a remnant. Okay, of the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom the Lord is dealing with in this time. Okay, verse 2 says, "No, the Most High has not rejected his own people, whom he chose from the very beginning." Do you realize what the scriptures say about this? Elijah the prophet complained to the Most High about the people of Israel and said, "Lord, they have killed your prophets and torn down your altars. I am the only one left. And now, all right, they are trying to kill me too." Okay, so this is an account we're reading in 1 Kings 19. And do you remember the Most High's reply? He said, "No, I have 7,000 others who have not bowed down to Baal." Okay, so the Apostle Paul is bringing up this reverence, to let these Israelite foreigners know, that there's a remnant, okay, of Israelites, whom the Lord would always preserve. All right, there's not going to bend the knee to Baal. And even though you had, Rome was heavily, infested with paganism, was you had believers turning away, okay, being becoming new creatures in Yahushua. All right, and the Apostle Paul is letting them know, that's they can be a part of their remnant. Okay, verse 5 it says, "It is the same today. For a few people of Israel have remained faithful because of the Most High's grace. His undeserved kindness is choosing them, and since it is through the Most High's kindness, then it is not, all right, by their good works, all right, which is keeping the law. For in that case, the Most High's grace would be what I said. The Most High's grace would not be what it really is, free and undeserved. Okay, because you can't labor and get the Lord's grace. He had to be chosen from the beginning, right? And within that grace, we will be inspired, to do the works, all right, as far as teaching and edification. We keep the law to the best of our ability, but the true works now, all right, is edification, man. Doing the works, laboring in His Word, man, and getting this understanding. Separating from this world, sacrificing, things in this world. Okay, we don't have to sacrifice animals, all right, but there's time we have to sacrifice now. Opportunities we have to sacrifice. People, jobs that sometimes we have to sacrifice, man. you know, it says, so this is the situation. Most of the people of Israel have not found the favor of the Most High they are looking for so earnestly. A few have, the ones that the Most High has chosen, but the hearts of the rest were hardened. Okay, so there's a remnant, okay, that the Lord always, will have, okay, in the midst, okay, of everyone else wilding out. Even Noah. Noah represented, all right. Matter of fact, let's go here to Genesis the 5th chapter, okay, because Noah represented a remnant, okay. When you get into it, all right, Noah represented a remnant, all right, of the lineage of the sons of God. So you go here to the book of Genesis, the 5th chapter. Okay, it's the book of Genesis, chapter 5. We'll get straight to the point. Okay, all right. This is Genesis 5:28. It says, "And Lamech lived 108 and 2 years and begot a son. All right, and he called his name Noah, saying, this saying, all right. So this is the birth of Noah. This was a saying, all right, amongst the sons of God, but this particular lineage, okay, because this represents a lineage, okay, a chosen lineage in the earth at this time. Okay, before we was Israelites, we were known as the sons of God, and you will have a remnant because you had sons of God in the earth during the time of Noah, and they were wilding out. Okay, you get to the 6th chapter, Jay was wilding, but there was a remnant of the sons of God in this day, and it was Noah. Okay, it says, and he called his name Noah, saying, this same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because the ground which the Lord have cursed, going back to the fall of Adam. So this letting you know, okay, that they were looking to Noah to preserve, this way. Okay, because our forefather, you have particular our forefathers trying to get back, to their glory. All right, dealing with the fall, starting going back to Adam. Okay, but then you had other sons of God doing what? Wilding out. They was bending the knee to Baal. All right, you read Genesis 6:1. Basically, they was bending the knee to Baal. Okay, so you go into just read it, which we got plenty of videos going into, the Nephilim and showing you how they were just speaking of renowned men amongst the sons of God. All right, not actual giants in the earth. Okay, it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born of them, that the sons of God, all right, that lineage from Adam, all right, through Seth, okay, through Methuselah, okay, through going down to Noah, through Shem, okay. It says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and that they took, it says, and they took them wives, all right, of all which they choose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So we begin to see, that the Lord, okay, being, angry at the sons of God, all right, because his spirit was only on one lineage of people, going back to Adam, okay. So the Lord began to draw back his spirit from amongst his lineage, man. He even shortened the years of life on them. Okay. It says, and there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in into the daughters of sons of men. Okay. And I said the word giant goes into Nephilim, which is fallen ones. Okay. The Paulium, okay, in the Hebrew. Okay. Matter of fact, let's just get it, you know. A nigga be doing a TikTok video in the morning, you know, trying to confound it. All right. Let's get this root word, okay, which is Nepal. All right. What does it go? It says to fall, to be cast down, to fail. Okay. To cause to fall, to throw down, to knock down. Okay. You see, and we was cast down from that authority that we had in the earth. You know, because Adam, he fell from his authority. Okay, the sons of God, they will fall from their authority. Okay, and we've been in a fallen state, since then. But what Yahushua did, he reversed it, and he set a standard of life. All right. So it says, Genesis 6 and 4 said there were giants in the earth in those days, and also that when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, that they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men, which were old men of renown. All right, and the Most High saw that wickedness of man was great in the earth, and the sons of God were in the midst of this, man. Okay, just like Elijah, he's during this time as he's prophesying to the northern tribes, and all them niggas was, all right, just wicked and pagans, man. Okay, and it says, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Okay, and you jump down, but what does it say? All right, Genesis 6 and 8. But Noah, all right, which he represents a remnant in the walk, which goes into comfort. Okay, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. Okay, so the Lord always, have grace, that will spare a remnant of his people, and grace is preserving us in these times, man, because grace is a motivator to do right, the feeling of being contrite and, you know, the motivation to do right, man. Well, it's the Lord's grace, okay, and the grace would always, cover a remnant, okay, and they would do, all right, the right thing in the midst, okay, of wickedness, man. Let's go here, First John. Look at this real quick. First John chapter 5. Okay, we jump down to 19. It's the book of First John, chapter 5, verse 19. It says, and we know that we are the most high, and the whole world lieth in wickedness. Okay, and we know, all right, that we are the most high, and that the whole world lieth in wickedness, man. Okay, so this whole age, all right, lieth in wickedness outside the remnant. And this is why we keep to ourselves for the most part, man. You know, we gotta everybody gotta deal in this society, the believers. We gotta deal in this society, everybody, their own capacity, man. But ultimately, man, hey, we're amongst each other for the most part. Okay. You see, so just the position that Elijah was in, when we're in that same position, because when we're not around each other, we're surrounded by what? Mostly unbelievers. you know, like in most situations, you might be the only one to believe at work. You might be the only one to believe in your family. You know, you might be the only one. You just out and about. You're the only one that believe. you know, so um, for the most part, it can seem like we're by ourselves. Okay, the earth is just dominated by what? Anti-Messiah, paganism, man. Okay, so reading on. All right, finishing this off. Okay, this is First Kings chapter 19 and verse 19. So Elijah went out and found Elisha, son of Shaphat, plowing a field. All right, there were 12 teams of oxen in the field, and Elisha was plowing with the 12th team. Elijah went over to him and threw his cloak across his shoulders, and then walked away. Okay, and it says, it says, here we go. It says Elisha left the oxen standing there, ran out to Elijah, and said to him, first let me go and kiss my father and mother goodbye, and then I will go with you. Elijah replied, go on back, but think about what I have done to you. Okay, so Elijah, the spirit, Elisha, is Elijah put the cloak on Elisha. Well, now the spirit is on Elisha. Okay, and he like, well, look, let me go tell my father and mother goodbye. Because he was finna be, he was finna give his life, to follow Elijah. All right, then it shows you the severity of, all right, when it came to following Yahushua, because it was a similar incident, okay, with Yahushua. All right, but see, Yahushua ministry was a more urgency. You know, when you go here to the book of Luke chapter 9, I started 57. All right, it's the book of Luke chapter 9, verse 57. It says, as they were walking along, someone said to Yahushua, I will follow you wherever you go. But Yahushua replied, foxes have dens to live in, and birds have nests, but the Son of Man, all right, has no place even to lay his head. He said to another person, come follow me. The man agreed, but he said, Lord, first let me return home and bury my father. But Yahushua told him, let the spiritually dead bury their own dead. Your duty is to go and preach about the kingdom of the Most High. So Yahushua then bid him to go and bury his father. He told him, look, let the spiritually dead bury their own dead. Okay, your father is dead, and everyone else, okay, in your family, they're not chosen to believe, so they're spiritually dead. So let the spiritually dead bury the dead. All right, your duty, okay, your duty is to go and preach about the kingdom of the Most High. So this is a much more urgent ministry. Okay, Elijah bid Elisha to go, you know, and tell his family, goodbye. Okay, but Yahushua was like, look, this is urgent. See, the kingdom is here now. Okay. In verse 61, it says, another said, yes, Lord, I will follow you. But first, let me say goodbye to my family. But Yahushua told him, anyone who puts his hands to the plow, and what was Elisha doing? Was he not plowing? And then looks back is not fit for the kingdom of the Most High. Just to show you how urgency the call is to follow Yahushua. Even that above Elijah. Which Elijah was a great prophet, but Yahushua, his ministry, it comes with more sacrifice. All right, it's more urgent. All right, because this is the kingdom. You see, so going back, all right, to First Kings chapter 19 and verse 21. It says, so Elisha returned to his oxen and slaughtered them. He used the wood from the plow to build a fire to roast their flesh. He passed around the meat to townspeople, and they all ate. Then he went with Elijah as his assistants, because you see the commitment. Elijah pretty much, because the scriptures speak about selling everything that you have. So Elisha, because oxen is a livestock, those are your tractors. Okay, that was important for cultivating your ground, to bring forth, a harvest. Okay, so he slaughtered his oxen and used the wood from the plow to cook, and he passed the meat to the townspeople. So he pretty much had a feast with his possessions. Okay, and went and left. All right, the life he had, and went to follow, Elijah, as his assistant, man. Okay, and this is what we've done. We've, put down particular things. Okay, we've dismantled our former life. Okay, and began to follow Yahushua fully, man. Okay, so that was heavy. What Elisha did. Okay, so all right, that's the point. Just want to tap into that, Lord will, you brothers. All right, and you sisters edified. Till next time, I'll say Shalom. Kwame Yashala, Bob, soon, Shalom.